Welcome to East Tennessee Pinball. Just pulled out this Card Whiz, which is a two-player version of a Royal Flush. I thought I'd just kind of let you see what I'm starting with. Pretty ugly, I mean, to be honest. A lot of discoloration on the sides. You got flipper drag. It's filthy inside. I'd say there's a mouse house, but it's more like a mouse orgy back in here. I mean,
condo.
Geez, there's old walnut shells, some Mayfield wrappers. They were eating good that night.
Party vacation rental.
Jane says party vacation rental. Man, there's some fuzz when they really had a good time. Anyway, it's pretty nasty in there. So first thing I'm gonna do is find some legs for this thing, stand it up, give it a good vacuuming, maybe douse it with some alcohol, just spray it all over there and maybe kill some of the viruses and whatever's left in there and see what we got. Hopefully they didn't chew on the wires. That's the worst thing. They usually aren't too bad about chewing the cotton wires. These are the old school cotton ones. I think they prefer the plastic insulation. So we'll see when we get this thing stood up. But it's a really cool game. Kind of hoping it's not too bad a shape. Inside, I had the door open. It actually looks, it's all shiny inside. I mean, it's not all rusted up, so I'm kind of hopeful that it won't be too awful bad. Got 63,000 plays on it. But it's not a rust bucket inside. So the mice haven't peed over everything on the interior of it, which is good news. So it looks like they kept their activity in the very back over there. And I think this thing had probably been, maybe it was, I mean, it was not, it was in this position when I grabbed it. It was stood up. So it's possible that a lot of this stuff slid this way because when I hauled it, I turned it vertical to move it. So all of this stuff may come, the whole cabinet may be full of stuff. I don't know. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna grab some legs, get the head up in the air, and get the glass off, and we'll raise the Playfield and see what awaits inside. So I just pulled off the lid to the back box, and it's all, again, it looks pretty shiny. It's not all rusted. There's one wire off this unit here. A little Mouse Tertius Maximus down here going on. But all in all, looks pretty good. Some high scores are not getting scored. Those are a little loose, but mostly shiny, which is what I want to see. It's not all rusted up from mouse urine. I'll take this one. You know, those brads are kind of a little dirty, but actually they're probably run as they are, I'd guess. That wire, not sure where it goes, but it won't be too hard to figure out, I don't imagine. Anyway, I think I'll vacuum this stuff up before I flip it up and spread all that all over the floor. So I went ahead and vacuumed that out. Some of the stuff I just grabbed by hand is nasty, but you know, there's so much paper. There were rats also besides the mice. I could tell by the size of the turds. And mice can't carry a box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch into a pinball machine. A rat can. Yeah, amazing. So I thought I'd show you the Jones plugs. They're dirty, but I've definitely seen worse, you know. Here's the power cord. Quality job. That'll have to get replaced. But for now, we'll leave it there. I'm gonna actually just go ahead and plug this thing in and turn it on and see what it does, just because it's an EM, and you know, about the worst thing that's gonna happen is the coil's gonna lock on. So if it's on for a few seconds, it's not gonna hurt anything. I was looking at this wire, not sure where it goes. It might have been grounded to the case here. Sometimes they are. I don't see where it goes, unless maybe it was soldered to one of these over here, but I don't think so, because that one's got a tab, so none of these are empty, so I'm thinking maybe it goes just to the case, but not positive. I looked through the schematics. Actually, I've got another one of these in back. I can just look at it. So that'll be my cheat. This is the back of that other Card Whiz I said I had, and so that's that, and it goes, yeah, basically it's just grounded to the case, so it going to the right there. So anywhere on this bracket would be fine. So that's kind of what I figured. All right, so I'm gonna lift this up here, but I got underneath more mouse house. Let me get the prop rod up underneath here. Yeah, you can see where I vacuumed in the very back, but I couldn't get this, but not too awful bad. No petrified mice. You saw my other video, I found some of those. Most of the labels are on. Well, I should say most. Half of them are on there. Ugh. Like I said, I've got another game in the back. I can copy them. I might be able to go to Incognito's website. He's got paper tags for a lot of games. I don't know if he's got that one, but it's nice when you're working on these to have the labels for all the relays. But you know, I've seen a lot worse. I mean, it's not all rusty looking in any case. And the bottom of the playfield looks pretty decent, really. And the drop targets look maybe a little lubricated. And that drop target assembly, I've gone through 2 or 3 of these. I think this might be my 4th Royal Flush / Card Whiz to go through. This drop target assembly is a pain in the butt to go through. But anyway, I think this thing's gonna turn out all right. I'm kind of toying with how far I want to go with this. If I want to make it really nice, and this is a game I own, Jane and I own, and how far I want to go with it kind of depends a little bit on how far this cabinet cleans up and the head. It's really yellowed. A lot of times the cleaner will take that yellow off. There's some old tape. That came off pretty easy. The back glass is fairly decent. The yellow's missing. Might put some yellow cellophane over that. Probably get that back pretty well. Looks like another color's missing over here. That's probably yellow also, I bet. And his yellow vest. Looks like all the yellow, the red's kind of bleached. Let's take a look at the playfield a little closer here. Now that we can see it. Yeah, I got a lot of drag marks right there. I bet Jane can take care of that. This game in particular, the inserts, a lot of times I can see, yeah, they're loose because that one's turned around sideways. A lot of times on this game, inserts pop out. They are available with the little happy faces on there. And the stand-up, those little faces there, they're available. Steve at the PBR, he's got all that stuff. This pop cap and all new set of plastic. The plastics, you get them from Steve, they're like, I think the set of plastics is like $60, $59 for this game. So you get those plastics, you can get the drop targets, you can get those little plastic, the 500, 3000, you get those new. You do that, get all new white posts, new rollover guides, and so everything you're looking at the top is all new plastic, and it makes a huge difference. And this playfield's got, it's dirty, but underneath, I mean, there's a little ball swirl, but not too bad. I think this thing is going to be all right. I may just get a little cleaner and see what I can do on the side of this cabinet here real quick. So I'm gonna try some of the Spray Away all-purpose cleaner. It's got the green cap on it, and it's sprayed on pretty heavy. And let it sit and eat for a little bit, and after a while it'll start kind of dripping down. And if it drips down with like little brown streaks, you'll know it's really doing its number. I'll give that a couple minutes. Okay, it's been on there about a minute or so. I'm just gonna see if I can wipe it off. It's not really cleaning it as much as I had hoped. I mean, it definitely is cleaner here than there, but it's not as wide as I'd hoped. It didn't take off any paints, and that stuff, if you leave it on too long on some games, it will take off the paint. So I got 0 paint, so I feel confident I can put on some more and let it sit a little longer and try be a little more aggressive with it. So on this head, somebody had already partially cleaned it because it was kind of white, but I was like scratching on my fingernail, and underneath that yellow just comes right off. So I'm just using a light wire brush, and it is really coming off. And the paint underneath is not coming off very much, so it's a net positive. So I'm just going to get after it here and see what I can do. I think the head's going to turn out pretty well. For whatever reason, the paint down here, it's not behaving. It did turn out a lot better, but it didn't. The yellowing did not scrape off like this one does. Like, you know, this stuff is just a little. It's able to handle. It's a lot. I can be much more aggressive. I don't know if it's different paint or maybe it's just higher grade wood to these. I don't know. So that head is not perfect at all, but let's look at the other one. It's totally yellow. So I'm gonna do this one next and see if I can make it look as good as the other side. To lunch, came back, and Jade has started doing the front of this, and you can see she did the left half and not the right half. Pretty marked difference. I think it's gonna clean it pretty well. I'm just sitting here putting together my order for this game, all the plastic pieces and parts. Just in case you didn't know, Steve has a page dedicated just for this game. And it's pretty nice because it's got all the parts you'd ever want. There's Playfield set, only 63 bucks. You're not gonna find any pinball Playfield sets that cheap anywhere else. The post, you know, it's got 39, just in case you were wondering. There's a dip set, dip target set. So it's just 20 bucks for the 3, and they're gonna fit. All the drop targets, you know, everything's there, and tells you how many you can get all new stainless parts for the stainless pieces if you want. All the little metal parts are available. Anyway, just thought I'd show you that. Just for fun, I have plugged it in, haven't turned it on yet. There's about a 50-50 chance it was already plugged in. It may not do anything, may not have any fuses in it or connected. I'm gonna do it right now. Okay, I see it's got a little bit of power because I've got some. It's in a game over, so heck, it might boot up, who knows. Wow. I think it went through the whole thing. If I think I've put a ball in here, it's gonna kick out a ball. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe. Who'd have thought? I cannot believe this game is booted up. Well, that switch didn't work. Is anything working? The pop bumper's working. That's kind of doing something. Nothing scoring, but we have some life. I mean, see what happens when I go ahead and outlane. I don't see any ball and play lights. None of those are working. I might still be on ball 1 because we never scored anything, so. Well, anyway, it's a good start. I mean, it booted up and it had points on there. It rolled those off, and so it reset a couple things. Let's do one more thing. Let's drop some of those down and see if those kick up. I didn't even notice if they were up or down before. So I turned it off, turned it on. I'm gonna hit the restart again. It tried to kick that up. We try 2-player. 2-player light did not come on, but anyway, I'm just wasting time at this point. But anyway, it's pretty. I'm amazed it did anything really. So Yeah, I know I look a little closer. This back glass is a little rougher than I saw that, but I didn't see all this nonsense up here. These match lights. It's been stuck on max light 30 for some time. But it's all right.
Crazy.
Yeah, I already pointed all that out.
Yeah.
Thought maybe get a yellow veneer to put behind there. I don't know. Yeah, the flippers right there. They're good. No need to rebuild those, I'm sure. Well, I'm gonna get on the phone horn with Steve and get some parts ordered. So Jane has spent about, I don't know, maybe an hour on this side here. You can tell the difference between the inside of the card and the outside of the card. She still got a little bit to go. It did take a little paint off, you know, like that actually had paint before. And the paint, so she was actually using a steel brush. It's a soft steel brush, but still a steel brush. Getting kind of aggressive with it, taking a little paint, but it's still better than, you know, like that, in my mind anyway. So when she's done, she'll probably go ahead and put a coat of Varathane on there to kind of lock the paint back in, because after doing this, the paint that's there gets kind of chalky. So that's the plan. That turned out real good there. I would say she's still only done half the front, but it's white now. I mean, it's got dents and dings, but it's an old game, you know. It's better than the yellow. And if a game like this doesn't make you not want to smoke, I don't know what would. I mean, I don't know if it's nicotine or tar or what, but it's smoke in large part. This one is sometimes it just melts off these games. This one, it's kind of baked in there. Difficult to get off. The front is always the hardest part. It's usually in the roughest shape just because it's got hands all over it. It's also the most visible, you know, when you walk up. The rest of this, if it's in a line of games, you hardly ever see it actually. So it's kind of the most important part. It's usually, yeah, like a bunch of paint missing there and around the shooter. Everybody gets their hands in there. This thing is real rough, but I believe that will buff up. At least it'll look a lot better. It will buff up to a certain degree. Whether how good it looks, we'll see. In any case, she's getting after it. Hear that ball rolling around. Well, that was one I put in there, so it's not too awful bad. Started on the back box on this one. I cleaned up the Jones plugs, and this has got a couple of sets for the score reels. It's got a couple more up here. Cleaned up this unit here. This is scoring the player unit, and didn't have to take it off, just rotated it to where toss it like this. So, you know, clean a little bit, clean a little bit more. These switches back here are hard to check. I mean, you can pull this out, but they're still hard to check, so I'm gonna leave them for now. I'm not gonna do anything. I did just real quick scan these switches up here, and some of them are indeed out of adjustment. I believe it was this one here. Yeah, that switch. That switch right there. It's a good example. If I can get it to focus in on there. There we go. If I push this lever here, you see that it is not closing. Maybe a little hard to see, but so that one there needs to come down just a little bit. You can use a switch adjustment tool or a screwdriver or your finger, whatever you have handy. And now it's touching, so just gotta do that for every switch in the game. And it's kind of tedious, but it's necessary. So here's another little tiny unit. I believe this is the match unit. Might have some other features. It's got a switch on the back, I know it does. So it's got like an alternator that's turning something on and off. It's switching like maybe the special, maybe go from left to right of the playfield, something like that. It's definitely got a switch that goes on and off. So that's probably operated by the 10 point or the 100 point, probably the 10 point. Anyway, I'm just gonna keep going through here and clean all these switches, and then I'll get down all the switches in the cabinet, and I'll have to vacuum up all the rest of the house down there first. here's one you don't see too often. I was just checking the fuses, and that calls for a 10, it was a 10, calls for a 10, it was a 10, this one calls for a 10, it was a 3. But it was not blown yet. At least it didn't look blown. It actually, I haven't tested it in a meter. It might be. Maybe I'll do that real quick. So I went ahead and pulled the Playfield out. Just set it over here. If you haven't ever done it, it's pretty simple. I mean, there's 2 sets of Jones plugs that plug right in there. You yank them out, and then there's one that goes up in the back box, plugs in here, and that's pretty much the same on all EMs. And then it just picks right up. They're not super heavy, about 50 pounds or so. And just sit it there, get it out of the way. And I'm thinking I may just go ahead and pull this box, the board out of here, relay board, and pick it up and set it up on top just so it's a little easier to get to, because I know there's a lot of stuff out of adjustment. There's 2 or 3 or 4 switches in the back that I've already fixed, so I'm guessing this has probably got a lot of stuff out of adjustment too. You know, really want to take some care and try to get as many things fixed as I can before, without having to actually diagnose it. Just doing it by seeing if the switches are opening and closing. It's much easier to do that route. So I think I will probably do that. I mean, there's not much to disconnect. I guess I can't cut the game turned on. Try to turn that off. This one here, that's a little bit of an issue. It's wired up. That's just the orange and red one. So it goes to the tilt bob, and it goes to the flippers, and all these things have spade connectors. Kind of a pain. I probably have enough, if I just undo that screw, I probably have enough slack to just sit it up on the top here. And in the back, I've just got the Jones plugs, so I think I'll do that. I think I'll just disconnect that, undo that screw there, give myself a little more slack, and I think I can just set it up here on the top of the game. So I took out those 3 bolts there, and this other side here is also connected. It's got the chime box, it's also got the right flipper and the power cord, and some of it has spade connectors, and that's not, so I didn't really want to mess with undoing all that, so I just got it in here about halfway up. But I can get to everything a lot easier, and I can, first off, I can see is I do need to do a little more vacuuming. I see some more turds and rat hair and mouse hair and everything else. So there, oh gosh, yeah, there's a big nut underneath there. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get the vacuum up underneath here also, because I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff. But for sure, I can get a lot better access to all these switches, so I can see them and clean them and adjust them just a lot better. Just getting it up like this makes a huge difference. I could have done it in the bottom, but this is a lot easier. So whatever works for you. In any case, I'm gonna start by vacuuming out a little bit more. So I figured while I get this thing pitched up in the air, it's a good time to wire in a new power cord. So like this one that goes like that, and it's run up through here. And I don't try to worry about getting the old piece out under the cat gut. I just leave it, I just cut it off, and I will wire up the new one, and I will zip tie it along adjacent to the old little dead end piece. So there's about a foot of the old wire that's just dead ended on either end, and it's best just leave it, and keeps the stock windings around cat gut around there, and it keeps it nice and tidy, and it's fine. So I'm just gonna desolder these other ones and put the new one in there and get the wire routed, and then I'll get to cleaning and adjusting all these switches. So I've cleaned and adjusted all the switches down here. There's about 5 of them that I had to bend to get it to either open or close properly. So I'm gonna throw the Playfield back in here and see if it's working any better than it was. By the way, this is one of the rare games where the 2 Jones plugs down there, they're the exact same size. So it'd be real easy to get those in there backwards. So just make sure that one's got blue and gray, and that one's blue and gray coming out, and likewise. So just make sure the colors match up for the plug and the wires at the bottom, and then you know you get them the correct way. All right, time to boot it up, or try to boot it up. So it's showing tilt. So let's see what happens when I hit but the button. Okay, on this game, on the Gottlieb's, a lot of time it's got to kick the ball out and roll over there to start the first ball. So now we're in play. Before it was not scoring. Let's see if it scores. Still no scoring. Yeah. So the solenoids. Oh, well, okay, that scores. That's the only thing that apparently scores. And that operates that, kind of. Yep. Oh, so that feature is working. So, and it turns off. But nothing is scoring. I mean, there are no scores at all. Ooh, I heard a click there. By the way, I have not done anything on the Playfield yet. There was another. I heard a click. Well, I think what happened, I got my kings or jacks. I got it registered both jacks down. It should have been all the way up. I should have a royal fresh because I got everything down. But I think I got that one. Let me hit in the game. Yeah, that's not quite right. As long as I hit it, it's going. So my bonus is not working. So it's still pretty screwed up. Yeah, that's what I'd say. It's not ending the ball. Well, wonderful. Let me go through the Playfield and maybe that'll fix some things. I know a lot of the features for this game are there's a whole rack of relays. That rack right there has a lot of the feature stuff for the green joker, white joker, so all the colored jokers, and yeah, and then you've got all these relays here. So I don't know, kind of weird, nothing scoring. I think it's beyond the Playfield issues though, be my suspicion, but I don't know. We'll just have to go through it. And this stuff looks, from the outside, it looks pretty clean. I don't know, maybe it's a bad Jones plug. I haven't cleaned that one yet. So I couldn't help myself. I haven't gone through the switches under the Playfield yet. I'm pretty sure that's not the reason it's not scoring. I just looked at the schematics real quick, and the whole, I'm kind of zoomed in here, but the whole top of this is the Playfield, and everything goes through the AX and the Q relay. My experience is the AX and BX are always the problem. So I'm gonna look at this AX. I mean, I've already adjusted it, but it's one of these, it's got two coils on it. It sets and resets, and the throw is super tiny. So they've got to be adjusted just right. And then there's never much pressure on the switches. So even when they're touching, they're just barely touching. So they're real prone to being a problem. And everything goes through them, it seems like. I mean, so like you said, the current for all the coils on the Playfield goes through there. And also there's a normally closed on the Q. And of course, Gottlieb uses, instead of labeling them, they've got the codes. So you got to look at the key to see what the Q is. If you're really good, maybe you know what the Q is already. I do not. Q is the game over relay. So it could be as simple as that. So maybe I'll look at Q first, just because that'll be easier one to look at. Well, I was thinking to myself, I don't even have lights in the back box yet. Well, I've got a couple control lights, but no GI. So I figured, not that it has anything to do with anything else, but I figured, well, let's do something easy. I started looking at them, and they're all burnt up looking. So I swapped a few out, and sure enough, almost every single light bulb in this game is burnt out. So I may go ahead and do the lights first, because it kind of helps you see what's going on. See what ball in play you're on, see end of game. You kind of see the status of things as you're trying to diagnose it. It was actually putting a 2-player on here. This one doesn't go from 1 to 2. It goes from 1, and then both of them light up. So that was actually working once I put another bulb in there. So I'm gonna call it for the day, but this still got to go through this, and then I'll have gone through the switches once, and I've still got some issues, and I don't think going through this is going to solve them, but it will solve other problems. All this is basically doing essentially the math and the logic for the Playfield stuff, like getting 2 aces or 2 jacks or 2 kings and keeping track of your bonus and all that kind of nonsense. But getting the thing to actually score the first time, it's like the Playfield's turned off. So it's one of the switches down here. It's probably AX, BAX, or the hold, or something simple like that. I say simple. It'll be simple when I find it. In any case, I'll save this for mañana. So yesterday before I left, I thought I had an issue around this area, and I was thinking that basically the current was going straight through here. It cannot, because that's a make or break there. So it either basically, if that one's closer, it goes left, or it can come this way. But basically, it's never going to pass straight through there. And beyond that, I looked at that switch, it's fine. Looked at Q, looked fine. And the bigger issue I figured out last night, I was looking at this thing. So I have the flippers are working. So the flippers are up here, and the kickers were working, and the pop bumpers are working. So they're all powered from this far right bus. So I was thinking I didn't have power to that far right bus. I do. So what I'm lacking is power to some of these intermediate buses. So these are all powered off kind of normally closed switches on the score reel. So I am going to focus on one that's fairly straightforward, like these rollover switches, like that rollover switch right there, the top green rollover switch. That's the switch on the Playfield, the top green rollover switch. And switch 1B, that's the one that's the relay that's held onto itself. That's switch 1B. And that is one of the switches under the Playfield, which I haven't cleaned yet, but I need to go ahead and do that. But surely not all of them are bad, maybe, but anyway, all this stuff is controlled. I know I've got power on this line by switch 2B on the motor. So I'm going to take a look at switch 2B and see if I can confirm that is actually closed when it's supposed to be closed. So I found that switch. It's a green and white and red and white. It's 2B. The B is one level down below this plate here, and that's 2 right there. I jumpered it. I still have the same issue. So that switch is not the problem. Could be a lack of continuity. It could be a chewed up wire. I did find one wire that was like halfway chewed up right here. I haven't fixed it yet. So there is some mouse activity. I mean, oop. I just thought I saw something there, but that's just a little cobweb. There could be other ones. It could just be a wire that's broken free. It happens. I should probably I didn't do a thorough job of yanking on all these wires. I usually try to do that. It's good practice. Just give them a little tug. Don't worry about them breaking off, because if they do break off, they needed to be fixed anyway. They should withstand a little gentle tugging. Doesn't take that long. I don't see anything real obvious. Well, I'm going to start measuring continuity, see if I'm getting my 40 volts up to that switch, and this is going to be a bear. Okay, so I got my multimeter in here. I got one in on the common of the solenoid voltage. Well, it's common for both voltages. It's only got 2 voltages. The solenoid voltage, which is, get where I can point, the red one. So if I measure across there, I've got 30 volts. And if I measure to the other one, I got the 6 volts for the lights, or 5 volts. So anyway, that's my 30 volts. So I'm measuring right here to where I've got it jumpered, and I've still got my 30 volts. So I'm getting my 30 volts to the switch, and I'm just going through the switch for sure, because I've got that switch jumpered. And if I go to that rollover switch, it's any of these here. Yeah, that's one of them. And you can't see, but a 1/2 volt. If I do the other blade of the switch, just make sure I do both of them. 3 volts. It's just, that's just a spurious voltage. On these EMs, you get like voltage drifts, but I don't have the 30 volts. So I've got the voltage of the switch, but not at the, well, I've got it on the switch on the motor at 2B right there, but it just comes up here, and the next thing in line is the rollover switch, and it's not there. So I've got a break in continuity. It's just wires and a Jones plug. That's all it is. So that really sucks. So I guess the next thing to do is look at the Jones plugs. I mean, I've cleaned them. It could be a solder joint where it soldered to the female side. It'd be nice if it's something simple like that. Could be the wires chewed in too. Could be just a poor connection. Maybe the female sides all need to be crimped in a little bit. I don't know. You're just gonna have to look around and figure it out. My bad. I was looking at this motor 2B, but there's not a dot there. It's motor 1C lights all this up. So I spent 20 minutes monkeying and couldn't figure it out. Okay, motor 1C. Let me go look at that one. So this is a switch. I haven't adjusted it yet, so I want to show you what I found. See, it's kind of like maybe touching, but see how this one here is moving when it closes, so it's got some pressure on it. And that outer one, it's really not. I mean, it might be touching, but I think it is touching, but it's not touching very well. I'm gonna adjust it a little tighter. And see, the other thing is, well, this whole thing could be tweaked. Let's get it in there a little further. But that outer spring needs to be pushed out there. So I'm gonna adjust that a little bit and see if that helps our situation. Okay, so I got the Playfield back here. I'm in a game, and now some of these things are, well, that one's probably just a bad switch. Yeah, switches are all gonna have to be adjusted. So that's not scoring, but it's at least getting, actually there might be 2 switches on there. So a lot of times they're double stacked. One short, I don't know. So I've got a lot more activity, and that one's just going on. But anyway, that's a good example of, so when I went through and adjusted everything, I missed that one. It was kind of baby touching, but it needed a little more pressure. So, you know, that was probably 30 minutes all in for that one switch, but if I'd have caught that when I was just going through and cleaning and adjusting all the switches, it would have taken me like, well, 5 seconds. But I missed it. So always best to fix those things when you don't even know what you're doing, because there are a lot of, and I wouldn't have known what I did, but it would have just worked, you know? So there's still a lot of stuff, a lot of the weird scoring stuff I still haven't done under the Playfield. So I still got to do that, but I probably do that next, but I'm going to have to run out here early today. So I'll probably end this for today, but I feel a little bit better, made a little more progress. I don't know if I think y'all already saw the side of the Playfield. Jen, I don't know if she left those on purpose. I think she just, I don't know. I guess she just hadn't got to them yet. Anyway, so she's got some more cleaning to do, this whole other side, but it's coming along. Well, it's been a couple days for me. I've been working on other projects and other things. Anyway, I'm going to go through and clean up all the switches on the bottom of the Playfield. I'm going to start with this bank. So this would normally be rolled up there, and there's a couple of wing nuts on either side, and the whole thing swings down. Makes so you can get to it. You can get pretty good access to all the switches in there. And, you know, you just manually pop them and then make sure that those switches are are, let me get over here where you see it a little better, that they are opening and closing. And having worked on these a couple times, they're kind of problematic in the sense that, so that one's is definitely open closing, and you can see the bottom one is actually moving when it opens, so there's a little bit of pressure. Unfortunately, a little bit of pressure is sometimes not enough for the 6 volts to go through. If it was a 40 volt switch, it would arc across whatever. With the 6 volts, it's really got to be cleaner and a little bit more pressure than with the 60 volts, or with the 40 volts. With the 6 volts, it just doesn't have much oomph. You know, there's just not enough voltage, or if you think about it as like pressure, to jump those contacts. So they need to be clean, and they need to have a little bit of pressure. And a lot of these are all the lights on the Playfield. The lights and the logic. So some of them are lights and some of them are logic. So some of them are actually 40 volts, but a lot of them are 6 volts. So and this games have a lot of circuitry in terms of, you know, all these lights in the center of the Playfield, where you the 2 jacks that'll light up a light, or the red lights and green lights and the yellow purple lights. You know, all those lights. They're all controlled by these banks. So going to go through and clean these up really well, and then all the other little rollover switches all over the Playfield and the stand-up switches. Those are usually less of a problem, because for the most part, those are going to be 40 volts going through these switches. Like this switch here, almost certainly a 40 volt. I'm not sure what I'm looking at, but it's probably a 40 volt switch. So if it's moderately clean and well adjusted, it will probably work. So anyway, I'm going to go through these, and then there's all these relays up here. I'm not even sure what all they're going to. These little mini Gottlieb units, they are problematic generally. Like this one's not really working very well. That's working all right, but it's going to have to be taken apart and cleaned, and they're kind of a pain. By miniaturize them, I guess they, you know, less materials and stuff, but they've got to be just right, or they're not going to work very reliably. So you got to take off one side and take all this stuff off, take the little spider gear off. It's just one piece, and then clean that surface and clean. I use alcohol and Scotch-Brite, and then lubricate it with some PBR grease and put it back together. And one thing I've learned is, you know, to a certain extent, you can, the tension on this little arm that pushes down on that spider gear determines how much friction there is in part. Anyway, it's linearly related. If you have twice as much pressure, you have twice as much friction. If you get too much pressure on that bar that's pressing down, even if everything's clean, it will still hang up. So you've got to make sure that. And the other thing is the spring. So you look at this one, it's pretty crusty. It's probably lost some of its springiness, and that's what returns this thing back. So and it doesn't have much throw. So when I see how little that actually springs is moving, getting a new spring wouldn't be a bad idea. So it's really a matter of getting the part number, because the spring itself is going to cost, like, I don't know, 50 cents or $1. You can always, in a pinch, just take one turn off, you know, just bend the top one up and put it on there and just make it a little bit tighter. I've done that. If you get the right spring, that's even better. So anyway, the drop targets, that's a whole nother ball of wax. These don't. So basically, you really want to do this on the bench, because they're a pain. I've got all the drop targets ordered. I think they're probably going to arrive today. So when I do that, I'm gonna desolder what I have to, which is, I don't know, about 5 or 6 wires. Well, there's another 5 or 6 there. So let's say 10 or 12 wires, and take this whole thing. Well, there's a couple more, and there's a couple more. So yeah, 15 wires. Take this whole thing to the bench and swap it out. And this one is one of them that's got 2 springs. There's a spring there and a spring there. And it's real easy for this thing to go, you know, it's hard to get it all together without, you know, you start in the center and work out, And by the time you get out, some of these springs on the inside start coming apart. It's basically a pain in the butt. I've done it a few times, but I'll relearn how to do it every time I do it. It's all I can say is it's a pain, but it's got to get done. And this whole thing needs to be cleaned up. Like I said earlier, somebody has put some grease on here. It looks like it's all, yeah, that's grease there. Probably out of a can, and it's turned into liquid grease. It went from WD-40 or something similar to like hard plastic grease, and it's nasty. It also gets everything dirty. So it'll work better, it'll look better with the new part. So I'm gonna get after it here. So I took a few minutes, I cleaned all the switches. I'm going through this little mini unit here. I just took off those 2 screws right there that hold on that pawl or arm, and then there's a washer, and then there's the little spider here, and that's it. So I'm just going to clean this face up here, and I'm going to clean the 2 contacts on the bottom there, and I'm also going to clean the underside of here because it's another face that could have some friction on it, and then put it all back together, and then I'll do the other side, and hopefully this thing will run well afterwards. I may have to get a new spring and or adjust this one. So I got that face cleaned up, just get a little tiny bit of PBR grease. And oops, can't even see what I'm doing here. I just put a little dab on there, and then I'm just gonna reassemble it, and any of the parts that are sliding, I'll lubricate those too. So like the underside of this, put just a little bit on there, and put it back together. Then I'll do the other side, and we'll see if it works. So the Bakelite disc, the only thing holding it are those 2 screws, so there's a fair amount of play. So you just want to center it. So like right now, one of those spider gears is going through that 3. So you just want to center it so it's in the middle of one of those numbers. So it just doesn't like span 2 of them and you get 2 lights on at the same time or something crazy like that. So there's the second side, and doing the second side I realized I put that on the first side, I put that spider thing on there backwards. So I'm gonna take it off real quick and swap that around. All right, it's all put back together, nice and snappy. Got another one of these, the back box I haven't done. Got the score reels to do. I think I've gone through all the other switches, and we'll see where we're at. All right, I'm gonna turn this thing on. Okay, I'm gonna try to credit it up. Score reel's not resetting. Let me just give it a little help here. Okay, I just manually got to 0. It kicked the ball out. So we should be in gameplay. Let's see what's happening here. We don't have any lights on the playfield. 0. Well, no, we got 1 lone GI, no 2 GI lights. I already mentioned the fact that all the lights were burned down in the back box. I just put in a few LEDs just so I could see if anything was working. So the fact that none of these lights are working may just be they're all burned out. That's working. That's working. And those actually lit up. At least 2 of them did. The red and the red. The whites should all be lit up. I think that all the white ones. Actually, it should be the. Okay, I've hit all. I don't know. I've hit all the white, the yellow, or the white, the green, the red. Wait, there's 2 whites. White and a white. I think. Oh, okay, so there's red, white, and green, and there's red, white, and green stand-ups. Okay, so that green is not lighting. Either all 3 green bulbs are out or the green relay is not tripping. Who knows? So this is the issue where you run into, it's like, is the game malfunctioning or the bulbs dead? I don't know. I'm planning to LED this game. I'm probably going to put this game on route. So I'm also contemplating putting a 2K clear automotive clear coat on this thing. So that's kind of dependent on how great a job Jane can do touching this thing up. So I'm kind of at an impasse on like, well, it's hard to diagnose it without the lights. And, you know, I really want to probably stop working on this thing for now until Jane can do her magic and fixing up the playfield. And then I can decide, well, I'm going to LED it, but then I can decide if I'm going to clear coat it, and then I can get into the details of whatever's left. Let's just see if before we only had the one Kings or Jack. Let's see if we've got any more of those working. So we'll do a Jack, a Jack. Maybe it was the Kings that was working. Yeah. Okay, Kings and Jacks, that's obviously not working. So the Kings or the Jacks are not playing. See, it's the 3 queens. And actually, they could be working. It could be the lights out. We don't know. So we'll do all of them. It's not going all the way down. Neither is that one. Okay, so we'll see how many of these we get, because it could be they're all lit up, but the bulbs are dead. We don't know. Let's find out. So it did dink, dink, dink. So both of those worked and the other 3 did not. So, you know. Anyway, I think I'm going to stop this video here. I'll do another video. Maybe I'll do some when Jane cleans this up, or maybe not. But I'll do another video fixing all the rest of this nonsense once I get the playfield cleaned up and get all the lights working, or get all the light bulbs working, so I know it's not a bulb issue. Anyway, hope you like this video. If you do, click the like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. What do you think, Django? You think so?